We've already looked at the anatomy of a mesh in an earlier video. We've learned about vertices, edges, and faces. In the next few videos, we'll look at methods for selecting those components and basic manipulation of them. In our default scene, we'll tab into Edit mode and select A to clear our selection. Now by default, Blender will enter Edit mode with Vertex selection active. So let's start there. Any of our object selection methods will also work in Edit mode on these component objects. We can right-click to select a single vertex. We can hold Shift to select additional vertices. Now, let's move into Front View, Numpad 1, select Orthographic View, Numpad 5, and hit A to deselect. Now, we can also hit B and use Box Select. Note that if we turn the cube, only the visible vertices were selected. We can deactivate our Limit Selection to Visible button, hit A to clear everything out, and now hit B and try reselecting it again. Now it selects all of the vertices within the box selection. It should also be noted that if we work in wireframe mode, our hot button Z, that button is disabled and we can select through objects. This makes sense as wireframe mode essentially makes everything visible. We can also hit C and use our circle select. Scrolling our mouse wheel allows us to choose the size of the selection surface. Let's tab into object mode and delete our cube using X. Now, let's hit Shift A and create a UV sphere. Tabbing back into Edit mode, let's use Circle Select to select a large area of vertices. Since Box and Circle Select are really meant to select many components at once, it can be easy to select more than you wanted, or sometimes not quite enough. Let's look at that. In Circle Select, if we didn't quite get enough, well, it's easy to simply left-click again over more area to enlarge our selection, so long as we haven't exited out on our circle selection. And even if we have exited out, we can simply hit C again and return to Circle Select mode and continue to make selections. Now that's if we underselect. If we overselect, that's pretty easy too. If we hold Shift while left-clicking, our Circle Select will let us remove selections. Even easier than the Shift key, if we simply middle mouse click instead of left mouse clicking, we can also enter this deselect mode. Box Select works the same way. We can continually hit B to make additional selections. We can also hit B and hold Shift to deselect, or, like Circle, we can hit B and hold the middle mouse button instead of the left. Alright, now that we've looked at selections, let's take a look at our transforms. Our transforms also work in Edit mode on our vertices. Just like objects, we can use any of our transform widgets to move components. Let's use Shift and select a square of vertices. Now, we can move, we can rotate, and we can scale, just like objects. We could also choose any of those and lock our transform to an axis, just like object mode. Alright, here I'll go into Front View, I'll switch to Wireframe, and I will box select the middle verts. Now I'll select S for scale and X to lock the axis and scale the verts out. If we hit Z and go back to our shaded view and then spin our view, you can see how they maintain the axis lock. Alright, let's undo that and go back to our original sphere. I'll hit A to deselect, and then I will return to a user perspective. I want to make one of nature's perfect shapes, the egg. Now, manipulating a few vertices seems like a clumsy and pretty difficult way to go about that. So, it's time for a new hotkey. That hotkey is O. If we hit O, we'll access proportional editing in Blender. At the bottom of our view screen, we can see we have many types to choose from, and even more types of fall off. For now, we'll stick with the default, but I encourage you to go in and play around with all of these and see what kind of results you get. Now that we have O selected, let's select the vert at the top of our sphere. Now, before we move anything, I want to let you know that right now you can move this vert around and that soft selection will work. However, if we hotkey G to grab, we'll see a white circle come up that shows the fall off area. Now we can scroll wheel to change the size that we want. I'll scroll fairly large and hit Z to lock my axis. Now when I move up, voila, an egg. Alright, as far as selections and transforms go, that should have given you quite a bit of food for thought and quite a bit to go back in and play with. So now, let's quiz. What button lets us select vertices that are not visible to us? What mode will make that selection automatic with or without that button active? What two methods can be used to deselect components when we're using box or circle select? Which hotkey lets us make a soft selection, or as Blender calls it, proportional editing? Alright, I'll see you in the next video where we'll discuss things particular to edge selections.